All right. So I've been conceptualizing this subject on critical thinking, and I thought that the best way to introduce this concept of critical thinking is to highlight first the notion that man is a thinking being. So what does that mean? In order to elucidate on that matter, let me draw from the insights coming from Aristotle. Aristotle believed that basically everyone gravitates towards happiness. Okay, but although the Greek word for happiness is eudaimonia, and the literal translation happiness might be not enough for us to understand what Aristotle meant. So perhaps we can substitute the word well-being or human flourishing to underscore the notion of eudaimonia, that it is not just simply uh, the ordinary notion of happiness that we contemporary people know. Okay, because we contemporary people basically associate happiness with pleasure. Aristotle, on the other hand, uh, sees that that kind of way of thinking is so simplistic and does not capture the essence of what happiness really means. Okay, so let's start with the idea that everybody is basically attracted, or everyone pursues the things that will make them happy. Okay, because what will make them happy basically is what is good. Okay, so when we talk about what is good, Aristotle will inject the idea of function. Okay, you see, he makes the example saying that let's look at a knife. Okay, so what is, or what do you think is the characteristic of the knife that will allow it to be considered as a good knife? Can you consider a blunt knife to be a good knife? Of course not. Because a good knife, in order for it to be considered good, it must be sharp. It must be able to cut. Otherwise, it's going to be a useless knife. So therefore, in order for a knife to be considered a good knife, it has to function well. And what is its function? Its function is to cut. It has to be sharp in order for it to cut. Okay? So therefore, a good knife is a knife that can cut well. A good knife is a knife that can function well. Okay? And basically the same thing for everything else. How can you say that a good doctor is a good doctor? Well, he must be able to cure his patients. How can you say that an engineer is a good engineer? Well, you must be able to make sturdy buildings, or uh, must be able to make roads and bridges that are strong as not to collapse. So it means that this good doctor, this good engineer must be able to function well in order for them to be considered good, or in order for them to be in a kind of state where we can say they are in a good state. The same thing is for a human being. The same thing is for a human being. But you see, when we talk about the function of a human being, there might be a lot of things that can come into our mind. And so Aristotle tried to delineate these different functions. Okay? Um, the first function that you can see in a human being, according to Aristotle, is basically the kind of function which you can also see in plants. He calls it the vegetative functions. What are these? Okay, what do plants do that we also do? Well, plants need nourishment in order for them to grow, in order for them to survive. And so as human beings, we need nourishment. We need food, we need drinks in order for us to grow, to mature, to survive. But Aristotle will say, well, That cannot be the essential function of a human being because even plants have that. Okay? What about the other functions? There are also functions in us which we can see from animals. The animalistic functions, Aristotle will call it. Okay? So what do animals do? Okay? So they have locomotion, they can move, they can also eat, they can also drink, they can procreate. Um, some of you might even say that, some animals are possessing some sort of intelligence. Okay? But then again, you cannot say that those stuffs, which I've just mentioned, are supposed to be the essential functions of a human being. Why is that? Because even animals have that. Okay? So how can you say that these are the essential functions of human beings? Even plants and animals possess them. So there must be something else. Definitely, there is really indeed something else. And what is that? It's reason, the faculty of thought. Now, what's this faculty of thought all about? Okay, you see, what separates a human being from other organisms like plants and animals is actually our faculty of reasoning, of thinking. Well, some animals might be intelligent, but it's really difficult for us to say that they can think because thinking is something else. Okay? Thinking is being creative. Thinking is contemplating, contemplating our lives, being capable of judging or evaluating rightness or wrongness of actions. Thinking is about contemplating God or contemplating death or contemplating heaven or contemplating metaphysics, for instance, or reflecting about knowledge. See, thinking could be associated with composing music or writing poetry or writing novels or brilliant pieces of literature. You see, all of these things are encapsulated in what we call the faculty of thought or reason. And all the other organisms in this planet do not possess that. Only human beings do. Only us, human beings do. And so Aristotle would say, then that has to be the essential function of a human being. And so returning to the idea that in order for you to be in a good state, it must mean that you must be functioning well. And if the function of a human being is to think, and therefore a functioning human being must be a thinking being. And for Aristotle, that's the way for us to achieve flourishing. It is the way for us to be truly happy. It's not simply about achieving pleasures in life. No. You see, there are instances in our lives which we consider to be good, but it might not be pleasurable. Say, for instance, if you go to school, if you go to a university, you study. The rigorous task of education might not be pleasurable for you, but nevertheless you do it because you know deep inside that there is some intrinsic good that can be derived from this undertaking, even if it does not provide pleasure for you. So you see, happiness is not simply about pleasure for Aristotle. It's about flourishing. It's about achieving that state where you can say you have a good well-being. It's that state where you are functioning well. Well, to use my own words, I describe this as becoming the best version of who you can be. You are in the process of becoming the best version of who you can be. That brings about true happiness, true satisfaction for a thinking being like us.